Let's talk about the lat. The latissimus dorsi is a muscle on your back that helps with a lot of different movements. Now, typically when we think of the lat, we're thinking of that big, nice lat spread. It makes your back look nice and thick, but really, that's secondary. It is really a functional muscle that we need to learn how to use in a lot of different positions. My name is Dr. Caleb Kaufman. I own NorCal Physio. We work with a lot of CrossFitters and barbell athletes that don't really know how to use their lats, and because of that, they can't do their movements. They can't do a lot of the bar work or the hanging work correctly because they don't know how to use the lat. And I don't want you to be one of those people, so let's talk about that. In my mind, the lat is like that cool kid in class that's shrouded by mystery. When they're around, you really, really enjoy them and you want to hang out with them and everything's going great. But when they're not around, you don't have their phone number, you don't have their social media, you can't get a hold of them. They come and go as they want. Now, what we want to do is we want to get that cool guy's phone number. We want to be able to connect with them. We want to contact them. So whenever there's a party, we're like, dude, lat, come on, let's hang out. So the lat is something that when we can activate it, it works great. But when we can't, it's really hard to say like, hey, this muscle right here, use that. And we're like, what do you mean? Do I even have that muscle? The amount of time that I hear, wait, how do I actually activate my lat? It's embarrassing, guys. We got to learn how to use it, and this is going to help you. This is how I help people go from not using their lat during a kipping swing, during a deadlift, to being able to do that. So now that's interesting because we think kipping swing, your hands all the way up, deadlift, your hands all the way down. Now, how muscles work is that there is a preferred range of motion. It can work through the full range of motion, but on certain ranges of motion, it actually functions optimally. Take example for the bicep. As we stretch it out, it's long. It doesn't work too well. As we shorten it, it doesn't work too well. What the research shows that between 100 and 110 degrees is when the bicep is the strongest, so that mid-range. Now with the lat, what we're saying is that we have to get all the way overhead when it's elongated, and we have to get it all the way down when it's shortened. So that's going to be a little bit of a challenge to be able to learn how to use the lat. And I think that's why a lot of people have difficulty, because right in here, when we're doing like a lat pull down, we get in that nice happy zone. We can really crunch down. We can get that lat engaged. But what happens when we're up here? Really hard. What happens down here? Really, really hard. So these two movements are going to be very, very important for us to learn so that we can learn how the lat engages in the full range of motion. Interesting thing about the lat, another thing, is that it's really, really big. It really expands most of the back, but it also attaches onto the arm. So what it does is it does extension and internal rotation of the arm, but it can also do side bending. It can also do extension. It goes all the way up from the arm and the shoulder blade. It actually attaches down here at the lumbosacral fascia. So that means that while it is a good shoulder mover, it can actually be a spine stabilizer. So when we're doing the deadlifts and we're saying, hey, activate your lats, bend, break the bar, pull the bar back against you to activate the lats, what we're really saying is, yeah, we're going to get the shoulders stable, but more so, we can use this muscle as a spine stabilizer so that your spine stabilizers can get a little bit of help. And that's fantastic, right? So that's what we want to do. So let's talk about the lat and how to engage it. The first exercise I like to do is a banded hinge. So the goal of this is not just how do we get the lat working, but then it goes into how do we get the lat working through the specific motion, the global compound movement that we actually wanted to get to work with. So we're getting two things done at once. Fantastic, efficient, love it. This is all you're going to need. You're just going to need a band. Now, don't get super cocky. It's a small band. Please start small. If you start too big, if you start too strong, you're going to compensate and you're not going to feel it in the right spot. So start with less resistance than you think is necessary. You're going to grab the band and you're going to wrap it around something nice and stable. Now, as you notice, there is a J-cup right here, and I'm going to smash my face right into that, so we're just going to remove it. Grab the band in your palms. I want the palms facing backwards. You're going to open up your shoulders. This is super important. If you open up your shoulders, you can pull the hands back and start to feel the lats engage. If you don't, we're doing this. Now I feel my upper trap. I feel the front of my shoulder getting a little angry, and it's not very good. So what we're going to do is stand up nice and tall. open up the chest, not here, there. Pull the hands back. Now the last piece is super important. Pretend there's a Skittle in your pocket and you're like, man, I really want one more Skittle. I know it's in there. I'm going to reach down to the bottom of my pockets right there. And from this position, I can really feel my lats engaging. So I want you to go through that movement a couple times just to make sure you can actually feel it. So open up the shoulders, hands back, drive down. Once you feel like you have that, move on to step number 2. Step number 2 is going to be adding a hinge. Now, what I like with this is that the bar is super close. So if I do what most people do with a hinge and they come forward, you're going to smash your head right here. So what we want to do is we want to be able to pivot the body back. Now, nice good hinge, keeping the knee above the ankles. Make sure that you're not driving back. Also make sure that you're not squatting down. It should be soft knees, but going back. Now, as you notice, my hand is going to come down here, just like this. So pretend there's a track on the side of your leg, and your hand is just going to go up and down that track. So here, it's going to come forward, and it's going to come backwards. So we're going to go through that. I'm going to explain something super important after this. Stand up nice and tall, shoulders back, hands at your hips, drop the hands down, keep that nice and tight, hinge back, and then standing up. Again, hinging back, keeping the hands on the track all the way to your knees, and then back. What you'll notice, the lats are engaged. My back should be staying nice and straight, just like that. So, here's the fun part. We said there's an optimal position for muscles to work. We're starting the deadlift down here, but as I go through the hinge, look where the arm actually goes. Right there. So pause here. I'm going to keep my shoulders still. I'm just going to stand up straight. We've now actually flexed the arm up into this position. So that means that even though it looks like an isometric hold, just staying in one spot, as we come down into the hinge, we're actually elongating the muscle, nice and controlled. And then as we stand up, we're pulling it back. And that's going to be when we can really feel those lats engage just a little bit more. Keep that nice and tight. And every rep, you should feel those lats engaging a little bit more each and every time. So here, nice and tight, hinge back, just like that. Now, a lot of people think, well, how many should I do? This looks pretty easy. I'll do 20 of them. Don't do that. I'll do 12 of them. Don't do that. Just start with 6. If we do too many, we're going to start to fatigue, and then this is going to start to happen. And we're not going to be able to contract the lat as well as we can. So, and that should be how you get your lats to work in a hinging movement. I like starting here. It seems to be easier for most people to start activating the lat and controlling the lat, getting that feedback, more importantly, from the lat when they're in this position, because this is just a little bit easier to contract, drive down. You can actually feel that really good control there. Next step, because a lot of people watching this are going to be CrossFitters, is I know I need my lats, or maybe you don't. You need your lats when you're doing any sort of kipping. The kipping motion should be initiated through the lat, and it should be nice and controlled. A lot of times it looks like some of these CrossFitters are on the jungle gym back in elementary school, and they're pumping their legs like they would with the swing set. We don't want that. We want nice and control. A lot of shoulder injuries that I see are because we don't control the shoulder and we're just swinging recklessly. Then you add pull-ups, and then you add butterfly pull-ups, and then it just like blows up the shoulder. So let's get good control in the shoulder before progressing. So here's what we do. And I know this is going to look super easy. CrossFitters, it's okay to do easy things. Not everything has to be super hard and challenging. We don't have to be fatigued at the end of every single workout. A workout is to make us better. Sometimes we don't go to the extreme. Sometimes we don't go to the edge, and that's okay. This is one of those. But I really want you to think about how this is making your pull-up, making your swing, making your shoulders as strong and as resilient as possible. So what we're going to do is we're going to get up to a bar. And with this bar, I want you to be able to hit the floor. So if you're up here and you're just swinging, that's not going to be ideal. What we want to do is we want to be able to grab onto the bar and stand. So from here, all you're going to do is you're just going to push yourself back with your hands. just like that. Now, I don't want you to push with your legs. I don't want you to swing forward and then push back. All we're doing is just a kip initiation. We're just going to do half of it. The way I want you to do it is pushing your chest backwards by pushing your hands forward. That's it. Here, and push. What I want you to focus on is going from this position to this position. Try to decrease the angle from here to here by moving this back. So here, pushing back. Focus on where you're feeling that. Focus on which muscle's working. Focus on the movement. Don't focus on how far back you can swing, how many times you can go forwards and backwards. This is an initiation. This is just a warm-up. This is just a way for us to get some good feedback from the lat for shoulder extension. Set a timer for 20 seconds. Go through that for 20 seconds. If you get 1 done, if you get 5 done, that's totally fine. If you get 20 done, cool. What I want is repetition. For these 2 exercises, these movements are for movement control. They're for feedback. They're for a way for the brain and the muscle to start talking better again so that we know when the muscle's working. Now, muscles don't turn on and off, right? We don't have inactive lats. If we had inactive lats, that means that we've had some neurologic dysfunction, and that's a real problem. What you probably have is just bad communication. How do you make communication better in any relationship? You just start the conversation. You say, hi, how you doing? Hey, I'm over here. Hey, I want to talk. Oh, we're talking now. Let's have a conversation. Then it becomes natural and natural and natural. So we want to make sure that the communication to and from the lat is smooth. It's quality. Make sure that we know when things are turning on and turning off, because when we don't, when we progress to the bigger movements, like the swinging, like the pull-ups, like the muscle-ups, that all falls apart. So start getting it in the kip initiation movement, and that should improve. So as a review, the lat is a super important muscle. It looks great, I know. When they're nice and big, you got wings, you're walking around like you're jacked, you have a nice thick back. But remember, that's not always the most functional. Even the people with the biggest lats may not have good movement patterns through those lats. So what we want to do is break down the movement, break down how the lat functions in this neutral position down here, in the extended position, but then also in the fully flexed position. The way we do that, we got 2 exercises. We have the anterior banded hinge to try to get the shoulder, the lat moving from shoulder neutral to about 45 degrees, 50 degrees. And then we have the kip initiation, which goes from 180 degrees to 140, 150. I don't have a goniometer, whatever. So between here and then between here. So get those 2 done. I think those are really, really good. That's what helped me engage my lats. Got to the point that after deadlifts, my lats were more sore than my low back, which is a fantastic feeling. So I want you to get strong in those positions, get strong with that muscle. It is a very hard muscle to actually work, but it's a very important one. Easy come, easy go. When things are hard, they typically stick. The lat is a difficult muscle to get started, but once it's going, it never stops.